of logos. It wasn't luck. It wasn't money. It was a rule. A rule so old it dates back to the Edo period, when the Japanese government itself banned merchants by law from wearing colorful silks. And it was precisely from that ban that the most elegant style secret Japan ever produced was born. Today, you're going to learn that rule. And after today, you'll never look at your closet the same way again. There's a quiet frustration almost everyone has felt. You buy an expensive piece of clothing, maybe even designer, get home, stand in front of the mirror, and something doesn't click. It isn't ugly, it isn't wrong, but it doesn't look expensive either. It just looks like clothes. Meanwhile, you've crossed paths with someone on the street, maybe at a cafe, maybe in a shop window, wearing seemingly ordinary pieces with no visible label. And yet that person looked like they'd stepped out of a magazine. Impeccable, expensive, intentional. The fashion industry wants you to believe the difference is in the price, that spending more will make you look richer. But that's a lie, and it's a profitable one. Be it as an excess of logos, prints, loud colors, stacked accessories, all of it, to the eyes of someone who truly understands elegance, is a sign of the opposite of what people imagine. It's a sign of insecurity disguised as status. The Japanese figured this out more than 300 years ago, and the answer they found has nothing to do with how much you spend. It has to do with how much you hold back. To understand this rule, we need to go back to Japan in the 17th century, during the Edo period. At that time, Japanese society was rigidly hierarchical. At the top were the samurai and the aristocracy. Below them, the peasants. And technically at the bottom of the social pyramid, but often the wealthiest people in the city, were the merchants, called chonin.
I finally compiled everything from this channel into a book, The Complete Japanese Woman. It covers your wardrobe, finances, beauty routine, and home, all built around authentic Japanese principles rather than rigid rules. It's not about owning less or doing more. It's about becoming the woman who already has everything under control. And that includes 3 bonus tools to help you get started today: an identity checklist, a finance spreadsheet, and a wardrobe organization worksheet. It's a digital book, ready for immediate download. Download your copy via the link in the first pinned comment.
The military government, the Tokugawa shogunate, feared the growing power of these merchants, so it passed sumptuary laws, decrees that forbade lower classes from wearing fine silks, bright colors, gold embroidery. Dressing extravagantly literally became a crime. But the wealthy merchants of Edo, present-day Tokyo, refused to disappear aesthetically. They found a brilliant workaround. If they couldn't show off on the outside, they'd show off on the inside. They lined plain, dark kimonos on the outside with the finest silks and elaborate patterns on the inside, visible only in a fold of the sleeve, a glimpse while walking. They dressed in understated tones of gray, navy, and brown, colors that artisans themselves diversified into dozens of subtle shades, creating an entire palette of nuances almost imperceptible to untrained eyes. It was from this forced restriction that one of the most sophisticated aesthetic concepts in human history was born: Iki. Iki, in Japanese, has no direct translation. It's a set of sensibilities. But if we had to sum it up in one phrase, it would be something like elegance through deliberate restraint. Kuki Shūzō described Iki as the opposite of 2 things at once. On one side, yabo, the inelegant, the obvious, the person who tries too hard and shows that they're trying. On the other side, puritanical excess, cold, with no sensuality or charm at all. Iki sits exactly in the middle. It's sophistication with a touch of nonchalance. It's someone who clearly knows what they're doing, but pretends not to care. In practice, Iki shows up in very specific rules of visual composition, ones the Japanese applied to wearing the kimono, and that still define, to this day, what we understand as looking expensive. The first is controlled asymmetry. Nothing in traditional Japanese style is perfectly symmetrical. An obi tied slightly to one side, a collar pulled just a little, revealing the nape of the neck. Perfect symmetry is considered rigid, lifeless. The slight break in the pattern is what gives a sense of movement, of humanity, of intention. The second is a restrained palette. The Iki look traditionally never uses more than 2 or 3 colors in the entire outfit, and even then prefers tones close to each other, variations of the same shade, rather than loud contrasts. Color is used with the same discipline as a sumi-e painter, the Japanese ink painting style. Fewer strokes, more meaning. The third is the hidden detail. Remember the silk lining hidden inside the plain kimono? That logic survives today. True luxury, to the Japanese sensibility, isn't in what's shouted, but in what's whispered, visible only to those paying attention, or only to the wearer themselves, who knows the value of what they're wearing underneath. And the fourth, perhaps the deepest, is what's called ma, empty space. This Japanese aesthetic concept applies to architecture, music, painting, and also fashion. Ma is intentional emptiness, the space you choose not to fill. It's the skin that shows between the sleeve and the glove. It's a pair of pants cut so well it needs no extra accessory. It's the courage to leave something simple. Let's bring this into your closet, right now, today. The first practical rule is the rule of 3. Choose no more than 3 colors for your entire outfit, including shoes and accessories. Not 3 prints, 3 colors. This forces the eye to rest, and that visual rest is exactly what the human brain instinctively interprets as sophistication. Cheap-looking clothes almost always have 5, 6, 7 colors competing with each other. The second rule is a single statement. If you have a standout piece, a distinctive shoe, a structured bag, a sharply cut coat, everything else in the outfit should serve that piece, quietly. The most common mistake in contemporary Western style is having 3 or 4 statements competing at once, and Iki asks for only one voice at a time. The third rule is favoring texture over pattern. Instead of relying on prints for visual interest, the traditional Japanese eye prefers to vary textures within the same neutral palette. A linen next to a heavy cotton, a fine knit under a structured blazer. Texture communicates quality without shouting. The fourth rule is leaving an empty space. Pick one point in each look to let it breathe. A rolled cuff that shows the wrist, an open collar, pants with a little slack. That's ma in action, the space that doesn't try to fill everything, and that, paradoxically, is what draws the most attention. And the fifth rule is understanding that finishing matters more than the brand. Artisans in the Edo period spent weeks on a single invisible seam. A well-cut drape, a straight hem, a fabric that doesn't wrinkle when you sit. All of that communicates care, and care is the true, quiet definition of something expensive. No one needs to read a label to feel it. The body senses it before the mind notices. There's a neurological reason why Iki works so well, and it connects ancient Japanese wisdom to much more recent discoveries about visual perception. The human brain interprets excess stimulation as a sign of effort, and visible effort is, curiously, associated with lower status, not higher. Think of anyone you consider genuinely elegant. They're rarely the most decorated. They're almost always the most edited, the one who knew what to take away, not what to add. This principle has an even broader name in Japanese aesthetics, Kanso, simplicity achieved by eliminating the unnecessary, one of the classic principles of Zen aesthetics, alongside concepts like Shibui, discrete beauty that reveals itself only over time and attention, never immediately. A simple, handmade clay cup can be more valuable in the eyes of a tea master than a gold cup covered in ornaments. Not because simplicity is poor, but because it demands more mastery to execute well. It's easy to impress with excess. It's hard to impress with the bare minimum. And that difficulty is exactly what the human eye instinctively recognizes as sophistication. When you apply Iki to your style, you're not just choosing prettier clothes. You're communicating, without saying a word, that you have control, that you don't need to shout to be seen. And that kind of quiet message is, historically, the oldest definition there is of true elegance. We come back to Kuki Shūzō, sitting in Paris, trying to explain to European philosophers a concept his own culture had taken centuries to refine. He said Iki is born from a tension between desire and distance, between wanting to be seen and refusing to beg for attention. Maybe that's why this wisdom, born from a law meant to suppress human vanity, became one of the most enduring teachings on elegance humanity has ever produced. The merchants of Edo weren't allowed to show off, and by learning restraint, they discovered something more powerful than showing off could ever offer: presence. Next time you get dressed, try this. Choose fewer colors. Leave an empty space. Keep one detail just for yourself. And notice how, without spending a single extra cent, everything suddenly looks more expensive. Because in the end, elegance was never about what you add. It was always about what you have the courage to leave out. If this teaching resonated with you, let us know in the comments which piece in your closet you'd remove today following this rule. And if you want to keep going on this journey through Eastern wisdom applied to modern life, subscribe to the channel, because next week we'll reveal a second Japanese principle, even older, that teaches not how to dress the body, but how to dress the silence of an entire home. See you then. There's a reason this rule has survived for over 300 years, while so many other fashion trends have come and gone without a trace. Trends are loud. They shout for a season and then disappear. But Iki was never a trend. It was a discipline. And discipline doesn't go out of style, because it was never about the clothes to begin with. It was about the person wearing them. Think about it this way. The merchants of Edo didn't have more money than the nobles who ruled over them. What they had was restraint. And restraint, it turns out, reads as power in every culture, in every century, in every mirror you'll ever stand in front of. That's the real inheritance the story leaves you with. Not a checklist, not 5 rules to memorize and forget by next week. A different way of seeing yourself. So here's the real question to sit with, long after this video ends. Are you dressing to be noticed, or are you dressing to be remembered? Because those are two very different things. Noise fades the moment you leave the room. Presence stays in someone's memory long after you're gone. That's the whole secret, in the end. Not silk, not money, not brands, just the quiet confidence of knowing exactly what to leave out. Thank you for spending this time with us today. If this story changed even the smallest thing about how you'll get dressed tomorrow morning, that's enough. That's the whole point of wisdom like this. Not to be admired, but to be used. We'll see you in the next one.